That's how it works. Oof.
How are you doing, Killian?
What?
When I close my eyes and dream,
Horse!
they're gonna put a picture of me on the cover of the magazine. And the entire world will know my name.
All right, so let us talk about Magazine Dreams. This is a drama, and the highlight of it basically is that it stars Jonathan Majors, right? And I know a lot of people like were kind of skeptical about it because I'll never forget like when the allegations came out and whatnot, concerning him and the whole toxic relationship he had with his now ex and
Yeah.
whatnot. Yeah,
Yeah, he's still in the doghouse on those people because I saw which I was kind of halfway about where somebody put out another thing about him. But like, this felt more like a hit piece if anything.
Okay.
Where I forget which magazine, it's a popular magazine, but they decided to put it out on SoundCloud. Like, just drop it on SoundCloud right before his film coming out. So like, we talk about a bunch of people just kind of effectively don't want to have him have a career at all now. And like, that's a stretch. To me, I find it's one of those things you can move on from. To be honest, but whatever. It's not me to make that call. As it is, it's up to you. I don't really have that big of an issue at this point because you already do eating. It's not like you can pay for it. You move on, you get eating. I forget what you do. You had all whatever the court case thing. To me, that's the main thing. You had a day in court, you get guilty or innocent, and you're moving on. Like, you're not, you know, Cosby or nothing. So that's how I feel about it at this point. But yeah, that way it is. So that's why I don't really have a big moral compunction about seeing this film or anything like that. It's fine.
Right.
I heard he was supposed to be in Sinners. I heard that.
Oh, that would have been interesting, right?
Yeah,
It would
he
be
was
like the
supposed to
second
be-
team up with him and Michael B. Jordan,
Right.
So yeah.
Right. So I
Yeah.
hear you. I remember because Sinners is a twin brother, right? But here it was not supposed to be a twin brother. It's just two brothers. I heard that. That's what the original idea was. I don't know if that necessarily true. Somebody could correct on that.
Right.
So that's all. But yeah, so that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was. I was not super hyped for this, but I was hearing some good stuff. I'm like, all right, I want to see what they're gonna do with it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, what I was about to say though is that early last year, if I'm not mistaken, that's when I started hearing about this magazine dreams thing. Like, Jonathan Majors actually was working on a film, right? So it's like that. But I think it's either last year or 2023, one of those 2 years, right? But the idea is that the world kind of push him aside and say we don't need you anymore. He's not Kang anymore, and so on and so forth. But then we were hearing about this magazine dreams thing, and one of the first stills that we saw was him, basically flexing, right? So let's just jump into what the story is about, right?
Right.
So, Jonathan Majors plays Killian Maddox, right? He is a bodybuilder. I don't want to say a professional, right? Basically the goal is like he's not in the big leagues as yet, right? But that's where he wants to be at.
Right.
The idea is that he wants to be Mr. Olympia because he basically idolizes this white bodybuilder by the name of Brad Van der Horn, right? And it's set up.
I kind of standing for Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yes, exactly. And it is set up right from the beginning, actually, that dude is mentally unsound. For one thing, right, he is super obsessive over being, just being the absolute figure, right? The perfection when it comes to, the bodybuilding, right? He overworks himself when he's training, he's pushing himself. There's a couple of scenes where he's in the gym and he's literally barking, like when he's like doing his push-ups or whatnot. He's like, arf, arf, and he just keeps doing that. It's crazy.
They get into that angle of it, and they make it. Because what I was thinking this was going to be I was thinking it was going to be like something akin to the wrestler.
Yes, and I think a lot of people, myself included, went in like, this feels like wrestler, right? But there's a couple of other shows that I'll bring up too in a bit, right?
It's more to me, it's more Taxi Driver, Joker, the Scorsese, toxic male character figure. Like that's how it more felt like that.
Mm-hmm. Those are the two I was thinking about as well.
And then we'll call him Popkin as well now, Rupert Popkin, these characters, right? The person just, they're in a space, but they're not particularly mentally healthy. and they super obsessed over this one thing. This kind of hits close to home a little bit because my dad used to be a bodybuilder back in the 80s.
Oh wow, okay.
Uh, yeah,
I was
that
3 years old when I found that out.
yeah, it's a short career. You could, I doubt you'll be able to find any stuff. I remember watching it on VHS or whatever. It's like, all right, cool. But yeah, the whole thing with the whole thing with the whole gym culture, fitness, and especially in today's world, it has become a whole thing. Like you know, you have a lot of people who just that's their identity. You know, the whole conceit of that, and then there's a whole weird, psychologically gendered, really, really poisonous aspect to this. And this movie does a really decent job of addressing it. It's not as strong as I expected it to be. I thought it would have been a much stronger film, but it's solid as it
Yeah.
is. And I think the whole Jonathan Majors, thing kind of cloud the problem, and that's what it was. Like if he was on the ascendancy, I think people would have received this a lot better as it was. Like people still, I think Kiki Palmer wanted to interview him, and she thinks she get in trouble for that. So he's still that part of it. But to me, that somewhat feeds into it as it was, because it really does the whole, like, does it feed into it or not because of the anger issues and, him playing, well, basically playing method, no? That whole aspect of, is he in the role as it is? And because the real life person have a lot of anger issues, that kind of, pull down the thing for a lot of people. But I thought it was well executed. I thought this was pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just generally, like, it really got a sense of thing. You really got a sense of awkwardness. Really got a sense of, like, him not balancing his emotions particularly well. That's like the main crux of it. I forget what he had exactly. But yeah, they do that aspect of it. I didn't feel fantastical at all. It felt very realistic, and he came across as generally sympathetic in that sense. But the problem is that we see this before, right?
Yes.
This time it's a black body. This time it's a black bodybuilder. It's reasonably well done. Like, me just holds it, but he didn't blow me away or anything like that. He just good. He's fine. But he didn't blow me away or like, wait, but this man had me. Wait, this was real thing. It was just like, oh, this is a good scene. This is just competent filmmaking, competent acting, solid stuff. This would have been bigger if Majors was in a better light in people's eyes. That's it. So that's about it. Not bad, but not great either. And that's how I feel about it as it is. Yeah.
Right. Well, my main issues come in terms of what the rest of the story is about, right? Because I just stopped at he's super obsessed over being Mr. Olympia, right? But yeah, at the same time, he has roid rage because yes, he's addicted to steroids. Yes, socially awkward.
That's part of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
which feeds into it. But that's all part of the culture too, right?
Yes,
like, who does take what drugs or creatine at what age and so on and so forth. Like, even though my dad was never really part of that, I see people who that get trapped up in, and it have a real weird story. I'll tell you that in private. But it's a story that was just, this kind of fucked up when I think about it. I'll tell you that in private. But yeah, so this is just that.
Right.
Is these things that, there's a whole, it's the culture of obsession, right? Is the whiplash thing, right? Is the person who, the perfection destroying you, but at the same time, you're not really stable anyway. And a stable person wouldn't have been in that situation anyway in the first place. So if you solve that, you probably wouldn't be the bodybuilder. And, it's that trade-off now about that. Very few of these people has come through, like, reasonably healthy or workable. There's a whole psychology of it, a whole sociology of it. That's the whole thing. The movie does a really good job in that. Again, competent, not masterpiece, but competent. And I felt it probably should have played it a little more, like, don't try to do the Scorsese thing. Like, I don't know. They I forget the filmmaker or the director of this, but it really feel like they're just trying to tap into the Scorsese thing. It felt like that. And I felt if they try to do their own thing, it would have worked a little better. I don't know. Like, I'm not making the film. I don't know what the thought process, but it felt like too much. It felt too Scorsese. That was in the back of my head now. Like, all right, it good, but like, you're doing too much of this, and it reminded me of that a little too much, and that's the problem. It not hurting the film or anything like that, because I get why you would pull from that. But like in the case of Joker, because Joker is a comic book character, you can let that slide. If you're doing it with normal people now, it's like, well, why would I, cater to this in this way? But it works. It still works. It's fine. Still competent. I don't hate any of this, and I enjoyed it for what it was. So yeah, that is that. Yeah.
Yeah, so the issues I had basically was, you just said it there. You've seen this before, right? And I felt that there were numerous scenes, numerous scenarios, which felt like, okay, we need to do the taxi driver thing, where yes, you have the awkward date, right? With him and a potential love interest.
Right.
We have to have the character send letters out to a certain somebody, right? Telling them everything they're going to do. They're going to eventually become psychotic and, become violent in more ways than one, right? It just felt like it was just kind of ticking off boxes, right? So
Yeah,
yes,
at this point, this is a template. It's a stereotype at this point. It is a cliche at this point. Sorry to say,
yeah.
that this caricature of a male figure thing is a little bit of a. We see it so many times. Sorry to say it. So
Yeah. Because I was roped in from the start now, and actually
yeah,
I was really digging the whole aspect of him just obsessing over his body in terms of just being
right,
Mr. Olympia, right? But I felt like around the halfway point, it was just like, okay, we didn't really know where to go with it, so let's go into taxi driver territory, let's go into Joker
right,
territory, right?
right,
So
right,
overall, it just felt like another We Live in a Society movie where it's like, all
yep,
right, well, you see, it's not just that he is, bordering on narcissism. It's the world around him. It's because he's a
correct.
black man. It's because he's mentally unsound
Which
and all that kind of stuff, right?
which
It felt like, all right, we get, but I would have
well,
preferred it more if it just leaned towards the obsession over the bodybuilding thing instead of, all
right.
right, let's just tick these things off and show
But
you
that's the
just
thing.
how
I felt.
psychotic he is.
Yeah, that's why I felt. That's why I felt the story, like, because they probably should have done the race angle of it a little better. Because that is the only part of this that is unique. You see, Scorsese's favorite. Scorsese's perspective is usually with white protagonists, right? And so playing it with a racial dimension that they could have put in it, but I see that require more time and work, and that is the problem with this now. It's good, but it because it didn't really make an extra effort in terms of its conceit. It didn't have to anything do on new or anything interesting to say. Because this could have been a white character, right? And it wouldn't have changed the movie all that much, in my humble opinion. Like they could have done the aesthetics of what it is to be a black man, like the black man's body or the thing like in the hands of a better director, this could have worked. I try to remember who the director is of this.
Well, I
Well,
think if I'm not mistaken, this is I think, right, because I've seen his name as Elijah Bynum. If I got the surname wrong, forgive me. But I think this is like probably a debut feature. I am
right.
assuming
Okay.
it's his debut.
It's a debut feature. Oh, there's a
Yeah.
debut feature. Okay, well
Yeah,
that kind of
and if you look at it like just the production companies involved, it's very small scale. It's just that
right.
Universal is the one who distributed, but yeah, everything else production wise is very small scale. It's a small film, but it doesn't look like it, do it?
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
all right, well, okay,
and,
all right. So that'll give me that give me a little slightly, take the knives off a little bit. I'll probably put on the good gloves, and that is not to insult the person or anything like that. But here, this our first feature changes things a little bit for me. 'Cause I thought this was like somebody who was like like they have a couple of films under the career, but I didn't know
yeah,
who it was off the top of my head. All right, scene.
yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know, like it just I felt the racial angle of it could have been emphasized a little better in the context. Like, you don't have to be, hands up doing shoot or some bullshit like that. But it could be like, oh, the aesthetic of what it is the black body is. And I suppose that's already on film. But like how you think about that, like I try to remember like if there are any conversations of actually talking about this or addressing it in a direct way, because it's a white guy, but they're not talking about it. There's a girlfriend bring it up or so and so, and they can have this commentary into it now. But I didn't get that from the film at all. Like it was just him being an awkward guy, and well, black guys could be incels too. Yeah, we know this already. Like that's not a new thing. And I don't know, it works, like it's good, but it just feels so by the numbers, and I felt it really come across the director just tried to play it safe and didn't want to do more with it. No, I don't know, it really come across like that.
yeah. But the saving grace of the show, of course, is Jonathan Majors, though, because this man puts his all into it. Though
Yeah,
you do buy him into being this tortured character, not
right.
as sympathetic as I had hoped or I had expected. Sorry, but yeah, because sometimes when it's like, yeah, you're kind of doing this for attention, or you're just kind of using your illness as an excuse, right? Like I say,
Right.
he borders on narcissism quite a lot in the show, right? But just seeing his character like just go through all these self-destructive moments, though, I will not lie, though,
Right.
had me glued to the screen, right? So yes, it's a very, very, very tough film to sit through. It is not for the faint of
Yeah.
heart, but Jonathan really holds it together. He keeps you glued to the screen, right? And in addition, this movie looks brilliant, like magnificent in my opinion,
Yeah,
right?
it looks good.
Yeah,
It looks
the
really good.
cinematography, boy, my God, this is
Yeah.
some top-notch cinematography I see that's shown here, right? I really love how expressive it is, right? Especially with the
This not
colors and the
I know looking it up. It's not his first film. He did something called Hot Summer Nights, but that was also a feature.
okay,
But that was like about 5 or 6 years ago.
All right. Okay. Didn't know that. Didn't know that. All right. Yeah. But
Okay,
yeah.
right, see.
Yeah. The cinematography looked great. Very, very neo noirish. I really dug that. Right.
Right,
Um.
right.
And I forgot to mention.
Which is still like again, it's
I know
still
we've seen this before, which is yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I do love the use of color in this film, right?
right, right,
And I forgot to mention, they also do the thing of did he or didn't he, because there's numerous moments where it's like, all right,
right,
did that really
right,
play out like that, or is
right,
it all in
right,
his head? So you do that, right? And just one more gripe I want to mention, I especially saw this in the second half. There's a couple of like gaps being jumped, like something will just sort of happen like quickly, and there's no
right.
real build up to it. It just sort of happens, and you're
Yeah,
just there like,
right,
all right, I didn't know your character is like this, or would be quick to do
right.
that and all that kind of stuff, right? What I will say, just to wrap things up though, what actually surprised me the most, just as I wrap things up here, right, is the show actually ends on a slightly hopeful note. Like
Right.
I just thought that throughout
Which I
this, it
which I
was
didn't
just
which
gonna
I didn't
be
which I didn't
this.
completely hate. That was interesting. That was actually
No,
like a surprisingly inspired choice because again
yeah, yeah, yeah,
these kind of
and
shows like trying to do this cynical bent kind of bullshit, which again we fed up on it, but whatever,
yeah.
whatever, you move on from it.
And what I will say without spoiling anything, they could have done one more cliche. They could have done one more cliche, and then the show would
Right,
have just ended with us pretty much hating the character. But something
right, right,
happens, and it's like, oh, okay, they didn't do that. All right, I admire that. I
right,
like that, right? So yeah, at the end of the day, this is not going to be for everybody. Nor do I think that the creators or even Jonathan Majors went into this scene. Oh, this is going to be for everyone, right? If you want to call it a comeback for Jonathan, I guess so. But it's
Yeah,
not
I
like
know
he
about
was
all of that.
cancelled or anything like that. So I don't really want to
Exactly.
call it a
I mean,
comeback film, right?
no,
But
again, because of the whole that whole situation playing out, and we still in the tail end of that this I don't know what to call it, like Me Too movement or whatever it is, right? Like a lot of people still think, I know me just do shouldn't have a career at all or something. As I said, it's up to you how you feel about it. I am in the camp that thinks, look, once you go through the court system, you're done. So you leave it at that. But I still seeing people taking a hit for even mentioning him, like Kiki Palmer. She wanted to have him on her show, and yeah, there are people like backpedal, and I think she deleted the episode or whatever it is. Like, oh, real dreadness too. So it's all of that.
oh
I don't
wow,
know.
okay, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I don't know. Like to me, it's just look. It doesn't like to me is how you feel about it. I just thought, look, this is solid. It's fine. Like it could have been better. Could have, yeah, but it is mostly because not so much better as it is thing. It just could have been. It just felt like it played it safe, like in terms of its conceit. It didn't do anything too interesting with the premise, and there was nothing there for me. But again, because it's held up by majors or whatever it is, and if he was in a better light in the minds of people, this would have been people would be talking about it and say, yeah, this is a real good movie and so on so. Like
yeah,
because right now we go and watch Sinners, and yeah, that's it. Like
yeah.
you move on from there. So it's how people feel about it as your friend or whatever it is. Like, listen, it's a whole dumb social thing about it because like how much people hating on Michael B. Jordan for even talking to Jonathan Majors still or whatever it is. Like that kind of stuff.
Like, come on, man. No, yeah.
Yeah, we in it's high school territory. Like like I get it, but at the same time, like enough. It's time to become. To me, I had to be like an adult about this. But
Right.
it's not me to make that choice for you. It's up to you, as it is.
Right.
I that's all. Yeah.
If
So
if I could just say one last thing about the movie, and then I'll just get to it. And yeah,
sure.
the
Right.
bleak tone, like it's very, very, very bleak, right?
Right.
That's right out the gate. That's not going to be for everybody. But I do applaud the film for just staying within this dark void and just seeing this character, just just sink deeper and deeper into his own like abyss of doom and tragedy, right? Yeah, I applaud the show for just saying, yeah, we're gonna stick it out, we're gonna stick it out, we're gonna stick it out and see what happens, right? Yes, it veers into cliche territory of as often, and yes, it does
Right.
veer
Yeah.
into we live in a society and oh wow, like
Right.
this guy really is a psycho. It goes into that territory quite a number of times though, but still, it's very well made. And of course, just the acting from Jonathan Majors really, really holds this
Yeah.
film, right? So for me,
I'll
rating
give
wise,
this. Yeah. Sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead. Sorry.
so for me, rating wise, I'm gonna give this a light to decent 3.5 out of 5. I think that it is worth
Right.
checking out. It's not gonna be for everybody. And I'll close this. I would not be surprised, even though the movie was made in 2023, but it was released this year. I would not be surprised if it shows up on some best of list by year's end. But I do hope by then people would have seen it, because it sucks that it underperformed in the box office. But then again, given the indie, just to use that
Right.
term, just the indie studios involved in it, I wasn't like honestly I wouldn't have expected it to make a lot of money, even though Universal put it out like primarily. But I still think that it sucks, unfortunately, that it didn't perform as well as it should. I think it just had to do with Jonathan Majors. Like, probably just people just heard too much bad things about him and just say, nah, I don't want to see that. I think it's more about
Right.
him than the subject matter, right? But I think honestly that if you do see it,
I agree with that. As I said, this might probably make like a honorable mention, because what I'll give it a rewatch. Because I think one of the big parts of film too is that it's just the raw visuals of it, right? And to me, the big aesthetic of, well, the black male body in its aesthetic, like what that means to people, how that is make people feel, like how that whole back and forth is going, with people to have whole crowds of people having a meltdown over just this character is this, or interracial marriage, or so on and so forth, right? And that aspect of the, I don't know what to call it, but it's the fetishization of it, right? Because and the nature of bodybuilding, and well, you can talk about like even things like sex, because, well, acting in general, right? That aspect of it, I really wanted to, I'll rewatch it. I'll probably give it a rewatch on silent, just to see, all right, what kind of choices the shots he make. If guy just watch the film, watch the film as a normal consumer, watch it, and really think about it too much as the basic, like, to talk about it for the show. But so I'll probably I'll give it a second shot and see how I feel about it in that sense, and it might go up in my head. And what is the director trying to say exactly? So I'm willing to give them a shot in that sense, and what it is they're looking at, or what it is I'm missing or thing. Because I want to give this a benefit of the doubt, and not so much about Majors, but because of the director. Like, what is it you're trying to say with this character? Like, you see how Creed and Creed 2 did that, like with his aesthetics. It's clearly Michael B. Jordan's body, the aesthetics of why those Creed movies work so well is because of that, right? And I was expecting something like that with this. Like, all right, when we think about boxers, we think of the black boxer, right? In at least in the American aesthetic in the 20th century, right? And that's why Creed did such a good job with that, right? At framing that aspect of it. And I was expecting something like that with respect to the bodybuilding. I forget, was the guy's name Ronnie Coleman? I think he was like a big popular bodybuilder back in the days. I forget his name, Ronnie Coleman, I think I want to see. But it's like that, like what that aesthetic feels to the public. What is he going to do or say with the conceit in terms of going forward, or that reflection, or the reflection of physicality into the world. And that didn't come across at all in this movie. But to me, something that should be the subject of the film. Even the wrestler nailed it. And in my head, is either it's just the director or the skill to put it off, or he did it, and I just missed it. And I'm trying to think of, okay, let me see, watch it a second time, if I can miss it instead of just it's illustrated it in terms of the aesthetic of it. I'll give it a rewatch, but right now as a rating, I'll give this like a 7 out of 10, like as it is. Like,
right?
I didn't love this. I really wanted this to be better. I was jumping in it, expecting it to be better because I guess it's a hype. But it's like, well, it's good. Like it good. And somebody rated up real high now. Somebody whose opinion I generally like. Even though this kind of missy mark, but it's like this supposed to say nobody cry in this scene and they find this was so good and so on. So I'm like, all right.
I've seen a review here where somebody was like in tears while they were watching this. Like, it really,
yeah, like,
really
all right,
hit them.
if you're so hyped into it, all right, I'm like, I ain't see it. Let me give it. I didn't get that at all, right? And I was like, I didn't go in with no thing. I just watch it, and I was like, all right, well, fine, I'll go take the scene. I don't know, Sam. Like, it didn't wow me as much as I think. I don't know if this critic hyping it up more than they should, but that's about that. So I'll give it I thought this was all right. I really wanted this to be better, but I was slightly underwhelmed
right.
as it is. Yeah.
Well, just to close things off. Personally, I don't see myself watching this again, or I should say in a hurry, right? But I will say, given the unfortunate underperforming of it in the box office, I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes like a cult classic, like, in years to come. Like, people will just look back like, wow, if it wasn't so hard on Jonathan Majors, yeah, we would have supported the film. We could have paid money to see it. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think like maybe over time, I'm not sure for how long. Yeah, people will actually check it out and they'll be like, wow, like this movie was actually really good. Maybe not as great as all that, but it was really good, man. And Jonathan Majors, like, we should really like consider him as far as great black actors today, and all that kind of stuff. So I would say, if you're bold, if you're daring, if you're willing to take that plunge into hell, definitely check out Magazine Dreams, man. I think it's worth checking out.